Hi, sir.
Whenever I forget, okay, just remind me. Sometimes I forget to record.
Okay.
Okay, letter C. So I will not be writing the limit symbol, but just show you the algebra. So you simplify either by you getting the LCD first, or you can do it by multiplying by the LCD directly. And the LCD would be 2 and x. So 2x over 2x. So which will give you 2 minus x, then 2x below. Just copy. And then you need to factor this out as a perfect square. Or it's a perfect square, so it factors as x minus 2 squared. And notice that one of the x minus 2 will cancel out, although this is 2 minus x, giving you a negative. There. And you take the limit of this to 2 from the right. So from the right, so you have a negative, right? A positive, and then 2 from the right, a positive. Okay? This will zero out, of course, so that will give you negative infinite. This will become very, very small positively, okay, because x is greater than 2, x approaches 2 from the right, right? But you have a negative symbol there, so it should be negative infinity. Okay, item 2 is what I have here for this review. Okay. So for this, you have to find the k value. So you just get the limit from the left and from the right and equate them. I gave an example like this when we were reviewing just the day before the long test, or the day of the long test, the class, okay, before that test taken the other. So if you're approaching it from the left, you should take the upper branch. Less than 3 kasi yung sa taas, di ba? Doon sa nakapin doon sa screen. So this will become from the right, the other one. And then you plug in 3. Direct substitution. So you get 9 minus 2, 7. Then you can cross multiply that. When you get this, just factorable. as k minus 10, k minus 2. And you will get two possible values for k, but one has to be rejected because of the condition that they have to be equal to f of 3. Remember the definition of continuity. Not only must the limit exist, that is the left from and the right are equal, but they must equal f of 3. What is f of 3? You look at the question, f of 3, evaluate by using the lower branch. Okay. So how do you choose which one? How do you choose which one? One has to be rejected. Okay, if you look back here, this is the limit from the left, this is the limit from the right. If you plug in k equals 10, okay, you get 1 equals 1. If you plug in k equals 2, okay, still the same. Okay, forgot the. Okay, wait. It has to be k minus 3. So I'm not. Let me check that again. Why the other has to be rejected? K minus 3. X approaches 3. Yes, because of x approaches 3, not 2. Anyway, if you look at k equals 2, if you choose k equals 2, so this is for less than 3, this is for greater than or equal to 3. Now, f of 3 is negative 7. The upper branch gives I think there should be no problem. Okay, let me check that again. So for those who got deductions because they did not reject k equals 2, let me see again. That's what I saw in the solution key given, but I did not really look into it carefully. So maybe I'm just a little confused right now. So let me proceed to answering the other items. Okay, for number 3, it's a graphing problem. Someone asked me a question like this in the review session or in the consultation session. So you may, if you watch that, or you were part of that consultation, you may already at least have already had an idea of how to solve a problem like this. You just have to draw the graph so that those limits, okay, at the particular values of x are satisfied. So let me look at that again. Just the conditions. Okay, so the important points are -1 and 2. So note that let's look at -1. Okay, as x approaches -1, the limit of the function is 2. As x approaches -1. So you must draw your graph in such a way that from either direction, the graph is approaching that point. Okay. And then as x approaches 2 from the left, it approaches 2 from the left. And then from the right, it's -infinity. So it goes down. Okay, from the left. So there seems to be a vertical asymptote here. And then for x approaches infinity, positive, it approaches 3. So this is a horizontal asymptote. F of -1 is -1. So you have -1 here. And what else has to be satisfied? Only those. This one is, this could be particularly tricky. So limit of f of x as x approaches -1 is 2 from both sides. And -infinity as well. So x approaches 2 from the left is 2. We can have it like this. However you want the graph to look. So, in the solutions key gave something like that. As long as it satisfies those conditions. You can jump there. Okay, at least you get the idea, okay, behind the solution. For item number 4, you just have to use the limit properties, the rules of limits, sum difference, quotient rules. Okay, wait. I can read the files, so let me just pin that to the screen. Okay, so if you look at A, for example, so you just apply the properties of limits, will become like this. You have to show this, of course, in your solution. Right? You distribute the negative sign and then you use the sum rule. The limit of a sum equals the sum of the limits to arrive at this. Now you just base the limits from the graph. So for example, the limit of f of x as x approaches 1 based on the graph for f. If you look at the graph, hirap kasi na kung wala ba lang. Okay. We'll do another one. Just save this first. Okay, there. So I was saying, you distribute. Then you look at the graph for as x approaches 1, so you see that your y value will approach this negative. Then again, for f of x approaches 2 for f of x, it's not this, but the hollow. So it's 0. And for g of x as x approaches 2, obviously it's 0, just the coordinate of that point, y coordinate. It's negative 1. Then for this one, same thing, except that you first have to, for letter B, apply the rules of limits or for limits. So that becomes limit, you have to show this, 2 of f of x, then plus limit 3, x approaches 0 from the right, okay, over limit of g of x as x approaches 0 from the right. Eventually you have to take out the 2 outside, constant times function rule. Then constant, limit of a constant until you reach this part. And then you look at the graph for these values. Any questions so far? Okay, I won't do number 5. I've done a lot of that also in the review consultation session. So let's just do the following. Still, some had difficulty doing the first part of this item. I hope you guys are here listening. Anyway, you can view this later. All right. Seems to be a problem with my gadget here. Very slow. Okay. Right. For letter A, you can just write first that one as 1/7 x to the negative 7 for the first term. Then you can write the second term as square root of 6x to the 1/2. The rest, okay, for the second to the last term, this one here, can use the properties of logarithms, can bring down the 4. That's one way to do it. Or some prefer to directly use the formula, the chain rule. So you get the reciprocal, then differentiate the term inside. May 4x cubed ka dito. Pwede rin yan. Sa numerator yan. Or pwede rin ito, mas madaling makuha yung derivative. Kasi the derivative of ln x is just 1/x. Then you can rewrite the last term as 2x to the negative 1. Cube root yan. Then proceed to differentiate. So bring down negative 7. So magka-cancel yung 7. And you can leave it as this. Bring down 1/2. Subtract 1. Pwede na yan. Final answer. Derivative ng 5 to the x is 5 to the x times ln 5. Yung iba hindi na ilagay ito. Then for this one, the derivative of ln x is 1/x. So 4/x siya. Then for this one, bring down. So plus 2/3 x to the negative 4. Ganyan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 terms. Any questions so far? Next, try do B. So you just have to bring down, use the power rule for quotients. Bababa. Ready get 1.4, showing this part. 2 points. Subtract 1 from the power, and then you just have to differentiate the quantity inside. So you differentiate the first term, 8. Then differentiate the second term with a minus first. So you have to apply, you have to show the application of the quotient rule. So yan ano. Ito. Quotient rule natin to. So denominator, no need to simplify kasi nakalagay sa directions, times the derivative of the numerator. So reciprocal, t cubed minus 8. Differentiate mo yung t cubed minus 8, may 3t squared dito. Then minus the numerator, times the derivative of the denominator. So meron kang dapat ilalagay na negative 21t squared dito. Then all over the square of the denominator. Then you get the full credit for each of the important terms there that I have to see. So it's 5. Okay. For letter C, you have to first use the difference rule. You differentiate the two terms. This is the first term, this is the second term. So for this one, you copy, right? Times the derivative of the exponent. So you just need to see this. And then in your line there, you just have to show the derivative of the first term, which needs the product rule. Now, for this one, product rule. So I won't be writing this down anymore. I will just be showing the answer for this. So first times the derivative of the second. So anong derivative ng cosine? Di ba negative sign? Just need to see the negative as well. Times the derivative of the one inside. So there has to be a factor of 7 outside. And then plus the second function times the derivative of the first. So power rule lang yan. I need to see as 6, a 5m plus 8 to the 5. And then don't forget, i-differentiate pa to. Times 5. There. Any question? For number 7, ilan lang nakakuha nito? Rate of change, you just have to differentiate the function. Okay. So ito si f of d, no? And to differentiate, one thing you can do is to write it in exponential form so that you don't have to use the quotient rule. So magpa-power rule na lang ako. Kasi constant lang naman yung numerator. So bring down negative 1. And then subtract 1 from the exponent. Sorry, nandito yung d. And then you differentiate the base. So 0 to. Then you have 142. Derivative of E is itself. Tapos, i-differentiate mo pa yung exponent. So, meron kang factor na negative 0. And then you have to do some simplifications. You multiply all the numbers there. Okay, and then you will be combining. Okay, hindi pala. Dali ito na. You can just write it as, okay. You want 10 times the constant here. The product of those. And then you have to plug in 12 to get the answer for the number or the rate of change of the number of infection at the end of 12 days. Okay, then lastly, number 8. Okay, for letter A muna tayo. For what values of n will the function have a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0? Okay. Kailan tayo nagkakaroon ng horizontal asymptote na y equals 0? Remember? If the degree of the numerator is less than the degree of the denominator, then y equals 0 is always the horizontal asymptote. And if you look at the given function, it's always the case. Ano yung degree ng numerator? 0. Ano yung degree ng denominator? 2. So that means any value of n will always result in a horizontal asymptote of y equals 0. So n is any real number. Okay, any real number will do. Then letter B, for what values of n will the function have a vertical asymptote at x equals 5? Diba ito, kinukuha yung vertical asymptote sa denominator. Remember, you equate it to 0. If you factor out, you'll get 2 possible vertical asymptotes. If you equate this to 0, makukuha mo yung n over 2, di ba? And you want a vertical asymptote at x equals 5. Eh, lagi namang 0 to. So to achieve such a situation, you have to make this equal to 5. So n is that. Halos testo ng mga concepts, basic concepts. Then for letter C, for what values of n will the function have a horizontal tangent line? Now this is a bit little more involved than the previous two. You will have to get the derivative first, of course. Remember, the derivative gives us the slope of the tangent. So kopyahin ko muna yung 7 points ba ito? Magkakamali. So you can write this as 3 times then differentiate that. Subtract 1, differentiate the base. Then there. Distribute mo yung -3. Yan. So yan yung rate of change or yung slope at x. And then, when x equals -2, okay, you want a horizontal tangent. So 0 yung slope ng horizontal, di ba? If the slope is horizontal, that means, if the tangent is horizontal, that means the slope is 0. And nangyayari siya at -2. Then it will zero out, resulting in an equation that allows you to solve for n. So yung x papalitan ng -2 because there's a horizontal tangent at x equals -2, and then you equate it to 0. That's the idea there to solve, in order to solve the problem. Okay, is there any question before I end the session? So for those who have questions, you may stay, the rest may go. I'll be uploading this data.
Sir, clarify ko lang po.
Yes, yes.
Parang iba po kasi yung questions na sinagot niyo po dun sa questions ng long test po. So, halo-halo po talaga siya, no?
Oh, yes. Maraming version yan. So, yung didiscuss ko lang, yung nakuha kong version kasi napi-preview ko to eh. I can preview it. So, sa preview ko, magra-randomly assign yon sa akin. Pero
Sige
parallel lang kasi yung mga types of questions doon.
Okay po.
So,
Last
binigay ko
na
lang yung idea.
po.
Yes, alright. Sige.
Pwede po ba mag-set ng consultation po for quiz 2 answers?
Yes, sure. One day before.
Sa
So,
Wednesday po
check
sana.
my consultation hours lang. Ha?
Sige.
Sige, kung Wednesday, we have class at 12. What time are you available? Can we have it at 11:30 or 11 like that?
Opo, kahit 11:30 po sana.
Alright, sige. Paki-email mo ako para hindi ko makalimutan.
Sige po. Thank you.
Alright.
Thanks, sir.